Oh, so many people here today. Thank you for coming. It makes my heart warm because we're talking about a group of people that are in such pain and can create such pain in families and are often misunderstood. So the more that we can share information, the more I think that we can have compassion. Because understanding, when we don't understand something, it's hard to have compassion. And when we understand, it's easier to have compassion. What I also know from the research and from my own work is that when family members and community come together and they know how to interact in ways that are helpful for someone who has a mental disorder, the prognosis improves immensely. So you can make a difference. So thank you for being here. So what is BPD? Now, I could go to the diagnostic manual and give you the symptoms, but I don't think they're that helpful. There's 9 symptoms of BPD, and you only have to have 5 to be diagnosed, which means there's over 256 combinations. So it can be a wide variety of presentations. The important thing about borderline personality disorder, though, is that it is a disorder of dysregulation. Dysregulation of self, meaning that there's not a clear identity. The person isn't really clear about who they are. And they tend to sort of be a chameleon. Like if they're in one group, they become like that group. Kira Gilder in Buddha and the Borderline talks about joining different religious groups. And whichever religious group she belonged to at the time, that was who she was. And she was a hippie on the streets, and then she was very straight-laced, businesslike, and she couldn't have her own identity. She took it from the environment. So dysregulation of self means they're not really clear about who they are. Interpersonal dysregulation is what most of you probably experience. And some people would even say that BPD is a disorder of interpersonal interactions. That if you have someone who has BPD on a desert island, that there wouldn't be issues. That the issues come in the interactions with other people because they have such difficulty feeling accepted. They have such difficulty believing that they are acceptable, and they have difficulty trusting that you care about them. Cognitive dysregulation means that they have cognitive distortions, that their thinking gets distorted at times, that you can be on the phone with someone who has borderline personality disorder and say, I have to go. Everything's fine. You get off the phone. 10 minutes later, the person is saying, you hate me. You don't want to talk to me. When it had nothing to do. You said, I have to go cook dinner or something like that. And so that cognitive distortion creates a lot of emotional turmoil and a roller coaster in relationships. Oh, whoops, I didn't finish that. Behavioral dysregulation is a very serious part of BPD. Behavioral dysregulation is self-harm, that individuals with BPD are known to do self-harm, but they're also highly suicidal. And that adds to the seriousness of BPD, that they have one of the highest suicide rates next to anorexia of any of the diagnoses. And emotional dysregulation. And emotional dysregulation, I think, is the key. And that's what we're going to be talking about mostly today. So BPD is an emotion dysregulation disorder. Now, what does that mean? What are we talking about? Everyone in here has emotions. Emotions typically are like this. They start, they go up, and then they come down. If you've ever been upset, angry, which I know you have, that emotion comes, it gets stronger, and then it goes away. Emotion regulation is the ability to control or influence which emotions you have, how long you have them, when you have them, how you experience them, and how you express them. So let's do a little experiment. Okay, so everybody stand up. Here we go. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I want you to hold your hand up like that in a fist and say, "Go Astros." You got it? Are you ready? Okay, 1, 2, don't leave me up here by myself. 3, go Astros! Okay, now sit down. It felt good. So I imagine, well, no, I don't imagine, I know. If we had a bunch of kindergartners in here, they would be running all over by now, right? You know, you get them upregulated and they just keep going. I ask you guys to get what we call upregulated. You did it. And then I said, okay, downregulate. Get calm again. You did it. My guess is somebody in here, I'm not going to ask you who you are, is not an Astros fan. You did it anyway. That's the ability to do what's called for in a situation, to cooperate, regardless of what your emotion about the subject is. It might be that some of you said, "This is ridiculous. I came to hear a presentation. I didn't come here to cheerlead the Astros." And you did it anyway. So that means that you can cognitively say, "This is what is called for in a situation. I will cooperate," versus letting your emotions control you. And that's what someone with borderline personality disorder cannot do. Their emotions control them. So I want to say just a little bit about overcontrol and undercontrol. And the reason I want to do this, I'm doing the very thing you told me not to do. So, undercontrol and overcontrol is a new concept. And I'm not going to talk a lot about it because it gets really technical. But BPD is in the undercontrolled group of disorders, which means they don't have enough control. There's a whole nother group of disorders that we call overcontrolled. In my practice, and I'm seeing a lot of people diagnosed as BPD who are actually overcontrolled. Now, overcontrol means they control their emotions too much. People with anorexia, they have too much self-control. People that you know that are very perfectionistic, that's probably overcontrol. So I think later this month, I am giving a talk about how to do the differential diagnosis, how to determine whether someone's overcontrolled or undercontrolled. But I want to just put it out there that people who are overcontrolled are very prosocial. We need those people. I want someone who's overcontrolled and perfectionistic to be my surgeon. They're the people that get us to the moon. They're very serious people. And they perhaps work too hard sometimes, and they have difficulty socializing. But they have difficulty socializing for a different reason than people with borderline do. The people who are overcontrolled are kind of, if you will, socially awkward. They're uncomfortable in those situations. They have a lot of internal suffering that leads to very chronic depression, leads to misery, but it's different than a person with BPD. They can also be suicidal and self-harm. But it's different from this lack of control. This is someone who's under control. "Hello, how are you? Isn't this wonderful?" Or, "Oh, I'm in the depths of misery." Someone who's over control is more like this. "Hello, it's a good day. I just won the lottery." So you can see the inhibition of emotions versus the extreme of emotions. And that's what we're talking about. The problem is if we treat someone who's overcontrolled like we treat someone who's undercontrolled, it's not going to work because the person who's undercontrolled needs more self-control. The person who's overcontrolled does not need more self-control. They need to let loose and chill out. So the differential diagnosis there, knowing the difference, is really important. So emotional dysregulation does not mean upset. You've been upset. You've been upset. I've been upset. I've even been upset so that I've sent emails I wish I could pull back. I've said things I wish I hadn't said. I was dysregulated because I couldn't think clearly. But my dysregulation is not chronic. And someone who is undercontrolled or has BPD, it's chronic. That dysregulation comes and goes frequently. It does go, though. So it's pervasive, and it is painful. And so the person who has BPD is focused a lot of the time on being able to do something about all that pain inside. They need something to stop the pain, to stop the intensity of the emotion. And so that's when you'll see lots of behaviors that aren't very helpful. That's when cutting comes into play. They do things to stop the emotion. And it's often in the context of most important relationships. So often if you're a family member, you're the one who gets the brunt of their pain. Their behavior is reactive and impulsive because when you're emotional, you don't think clearly. And when that intensity is so strong, you can't think clearly and make good decisions. So it looks like, why on earth would you do that? How did you expect that telling off your dad was going to make him want to help you more? It's really difficult for them. They express that emotion. They can't see cause and effect. If I do this, then this will happen. It's an impulsive thing. And they're either attacking or withdrawing or clinging in the relationship. Up and down, up and down, up and down. I hate you. I never want to see you again. You're out of my life. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm so sorry. Please, I am so sorry. You're the most important thing in my world. Why won't you talk to me? You've got to talk to me. Now, I can almost feel the pain in that, but being on the other side of that is painful too. When you're constantly being pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled, you're great, you're horrible. It's a painful emotional experience on both sides. So this is a picture of what we're talking about with emotion dysregulation. So this comes from Alan Perzetti, and emotion dysregulation is in the center, but all of these go together. If you are dysregulated, so emotional you can't think clearly, your frontal lobe is not on board. You're in dinosaur brain. You can't think and solve problems effectively. And if you can't think and solve problems effectively, you're going to act impulsively. And if you act impulsively, then you're going to have problems in relationships. And if you have problems in relationships, that all comes back to add to the emotion that someone is experiencing. So it becomes like a whirlpool, which let's talk about. Do you get what I'm trying to do here? Yeah? Okay. So part of what I'm trying to say is that the person who has BPD, it's a little like an elephant and a rider. And the elephant and the rider is the brain. So the rider is the logical part of the brain, and the elephant is the emotional part of the brain. As long as the elephant and the rider both want to do the same thing, the thought and the emotion are the same, great. But what happens if the emotions, the elephant, wants to go in a different direction than the logic? Who's going to win? It's going to be the elephant. Emotions are powerful. They're powerful for you and me. But the intensity for someone with BPD is even more so because they're born with a greater intensity of emotion. So we're going to talk about that. So first, let's look at how this emotion builds. It's more intense to start with, but let's look at how it builds. So first, there's an emotion. Something happens. They call, you don't call back within the next 10 minutes. So there's upset. What happens then is something called rumination. Rumination means you go over and over and over something. Why didn't they call me back? What happened? You know, I noticed that they didn't talk to me as much last night when I had dinner with them. You know, this happens to me all the time. People get mad. People want to leave me. I hate this. How dare they? And then the emotion builds. It increases in intensity. So all of that thinking, with all their fears about loss, and with all of their, with cognitive distortions, the emotion gets more and more intense. And the cycle repeats. They keep going round and round. And it becomes an emotional cascade until they are trying their best not to act on it because they know that things have happened before. They know that they're emotionally getting really wound up, but they can't. They have to find something external to stop it. And so that's how they end up with behavioral dysregulation, running away for younger people, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, cutting, shoplifting, spending too much, telling people off, throwing your husband's clothes out on the yard, destroying possessions. And that gives them some emotional relief. Not in an effective way, but they're so emotionally intense that they have to have some emotional relief. And it will not be logical to you. It then becomes also an emotional whirlpool. So what happens is that something happens that's painful. They go through that emotional cascade. They do whatever they do. They have this strong emotional reaction. And they also, it's like, it will never go away. I'm going to feel this way forever. There is no end to it. And they believe that. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that. I can't think about something that will make me sad because I will be sad forever. I can't come out of it. And you know, when I ask you guys, stand up, sit down, you can come out of an emotion. They do not have the skill to do that. The emotion controls them. So then it becomes despair and hopelessness. And that's where suicide comes in for most people who have BPD, when they hit that point of despair, that there is no end to this. They also, whether they tell you or not, they also have this fear and belief that they are out of control. Now, some people with BPD will tell you, I hate myself. I hate the way I react. I hate that I do this to you. I hate that I react this way. Others will say, it's your fault. I wouldn't be this way if you didn't do this. I wouldn't be this way if you didn't do that. Because they can't quite look at themselves. And then that hatred of themselves, that hatred of themselves, keeps the emotion going more and more. And that's part of why it's so painful sometimes for them to be kind to you, why it's so hard and painful for them to live life. So they do one of two things. When they hate themselves so much, they start trying to avoid emotions altogether, which doesn't work. Pack them down, they're going to come out. And probably in a big spew like a volcano. Or they try to avoid feeling it all and do the things we talked about, the behaviors, to take away the painful emotions. So then you've got this roller coaster effect. You have a wonderful dinner because people with BPD are also some of the kindest people I've ever met, some of the most thoughtful, some people who are really tuned in to other people's emotions sometimes. If they get a birthday gift for someone, it's usually very thoughtful. They're funny. And when they're feeling secure and solid, oh, they're fun to be around, most people with BPD. So you've got that part, that loving, caring, kind part. And then you get the phone call where you didn't call them back you didn't answer, you didn't get the message, and they're screaming at you. So that's that yo-yo roller coaster effect that is so hard on families and also on the person with BPD. My guess is that you may be like other families I've talked with, and you start to feel directionless. I can't say it. Directionless. There we go. Yes. And you start to feel like nothing you do is right. You're wrong if you do this, and you're wrong if you do that. And that's painful when you love someone. It can also be confusing because individuals with borderline personality disorder at times can appear very competent. They can sit there and say to you, this is exactly what I need to do. This is what I'm going to do. I've got it. I'm going to go to the bank, and I'm going to set up an account, and I'm going to get a job, and I've got an apartment. This is my schedule for my budget. And right there in front of you, it's wonderful. They leave, falls apart. They can't talk to the bank person, their budget falls apart, they spend the money on a trip to Hawaii, and you're going, look, I'm being manipulated because there is no way, I know she knows what to do, or he. I know that he knows what to do. He just told me. So what's going on there? The person with BPD can sometimes function really well cognitively when there's nothing emotional going on. So when she or he is facing the bank manager, it's a whole different story because the anxiety goes up, the emotion may build. Having to actually do what she talked about changes the situation for her. It's also true, and this is true for therapists, that the person with BPD in my office is a different person than the person with BPD outside my office. And if you are the safe person for someone with BPD, then they are different with you than they are away from you. What we know from research, and I'm seeing nodded heads, so I'm getting it from you too, is that you're providing a safety for them allows them to function at a higher level. It looks like manipulation, but it's because you provide the safety that the brain can relax and they can think. And they can function better with you there. So how does BPD develop? Well, this is important because of what I want to talk to you about in terms of what you can do. So let's talk about this for a moment. And this is a theory, by the way. We don't know this for sure. But what we do know is that individuals who have this under control of emotions are born with a certain emotional intensity that is different from someone who's not. There's a biological component to this disorder. And in fact, one of the components is that they are faster to react to something that is emotional than other people are. So I can walk into a room and let's see, maybe somebody's clicking a pen. I kind of ignore it, because my nervous system is just not reacting to it. But the person with BPD, what's that? They're much faster to react to stimuli and more sensitive to stimuli. So this lower curve, the blue, is me or anyone who doesn't have under control. And the red curve is someone who does have under control of emotions or BPD. So you can see the steeper upgoing of the emotion. The emotion goes up faster. So you can see it fire just like that. What you say, Dad, I want to borrow the car. No, you've wrecked the car 3 times. You're not borrowing the car. What? How dare you? You never forget. And it's fast. Just like that. There's fire. And then the intensity goes higher than it would for people who don't have BPD. And then it stays longer. It takes a longer time to recover. That's biology. People that do research on the brain have measured that. There is a difference. So when we look at the intensity of emotions, their baseline is just higher than yours or mine. So that part is the emotional vulnerability. They have more emotional vulnerability. But now there's a second part, and this is the environmental part. I did some, you guys know Carla Sharp at U of H? She was very gracious and did some research with me, because I'm not a researcher. And we looked at people who are emotionally sensitive, because that's what we're talking about. Emotional vulnerability is really emotional sensitivity. And by the way, guess who's an emotionally sensitive person? Me. And maybe you. If you are a therapist, you probably are. Emotional sensitivity is that you can feel things and you sort of can sense other people's emotions and you really care. You have that connection. And maybe it's hard to watch movies or the news. It's hard to watch things that are emotionally triggering for you. Emotional sensitivity can be there, artist. So what turns it into a problem? Well, what we found was that people who were emotionally sensitive but hated their emotional sensitivity for whatever reason, those were the people who tended to develop borderline personality disorder. The people who saw emotional sensitivity as meaning they didn't fit in. Like, my family didn't understand me. I didn't fit in my community. I was different from day one, and I knew it, and it was different in a bad way. I was always told I overreacted. I was always told I felt things too intensely. I was always told, get over it already. When they that's called invalidation. Pervasive emotional invalidation is believed to be the part that interacts with that emotional sensitivity that results in BPD. It can come from schools, it can come from other people, it can come from families, it can come from the person themselves, but usually if it comes from the person themselves, they've gotten it from somewhere else first. Now, before I have a room full of people who are starting to feel guilty or blamed, I just want to say there's no way you can know. Like, you go to see Bambi with 3 children, and you get home, and one of them is still crying 3 hours later. What's the normal thing to say? Get over it. It's a movie. One of your children falls and bruises their knee. The other child would fall and bruise their knee, and it would be over. This one's still crying. This one's still upset. And you're saying, come on. Because you want this child to fit in with the rest of the world, and you don't know what's going on inside. Invalidation can happen and will happen unintentionally. In fact, the world's just going to invalidate. They invalidate me every day. I wish I could go through my whole day and you guys just validate me. Tell me the way I feel is great. Tell me the way I think's perfect. I wish you'd do that. It doesn't happen. So invalidation is normal. It's going to happen. But when it interacts with someone who's super sensitive, that's where the mix comes. So invalidation means that you're telling someone they're wrong for the way they think or feel. It's a pathological explanation for their actions. They don't do their homework, and you say you're lazy. They are crying 3 hours later from Bambi, and you say, oh, you always overreact to everything. You are just an overreactor. You're too sensitive. It's sort of like name-calling their internal experience. Oversimplified problem solving. So invalidation, part of the way you can invalidate someone is through oversimplified problem solving. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's say you have a friend who comes over and she says, I have a problem at work and my colleague is like annoying me every day, and she's taking credit for the work that I do, and she is taking my supplies that I have to buy myself, and I'm just really upset with that. Okay. What's normal advice? Talk to her. Tell her. Stop it. Child's not getting good grades at school. What's normal advice? Look, do your homework. Study more. Child's not getting along with other children on the playground. Be nicer. Quit arguing with people. Yet for individuals who have BPD, that's invalidating because actually they have no idea how not to get angry. They have no idea how to control those intense emotions. They have no idea how to interact with somebody and ask them not to. They don't have the skills. If I ask you, actually, you, how do you tell someone to not get angry? I didn't know. When I first started practice, I had no idea how to tell people to manage anger or to regulate their emotions. It's like, don't do it. Don't yell at people. Stop yelling at people. They'll like you better. So I have just now told someone who's in that emotional whirlpool with really intense emotions biologically, just don't do it. Think how you would feel when you can't not do it. I think that's right. You can't. You have no idea. So that's oversimplified problem solving, telling people to do things they don't know how to or can't do. Okay, and here's the other one. So you have a young adult who's living with you who has borderline personality disorder, and you know this thing about setting limits, right? Or maybe it's your spouse, I don't know. And you know about setting limits and living your own life, taking care of yourself too. So your wife comes in and says, I want a trip to Thailand. That's good. I just need to get away. That's going to make me happy. I need a trip to Thailand. And you say no. The wife gets louder. You never do anything. I thought you would do anything you could to support me. You never do anything to help me. You just don't care. That's what it is. You just don't care. If you really cared, you'd do this. You say, honey, we don't have the money for a trip right now. We can't go. We can't do that. I just can't stand it anymore. I can't stand it anymore. You're making me miserable. And she runs off, and you know that you're scared that she's going to hurt herself or make a suicide attempt or cut. And you say, wait, we'll go to Thailand. Now, it's kind of a silly example, I guess, but the idea is that when the environment gives in, when the emotions get bigger, you've actually just reinforced people getting bigger. So with their emotions, because they learn that that's the way they can get what they think they need, is to get bigger. So when we say no, 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 but then give in when the emotions get bigger, we've actually contributed to the problem, although that's, of course, not what you meant to do. Of course not. So people with BPD have certain cognitions, typically. And I know this may not seem the way that they're thinking, and it's probably not true for everyone. It's just kind of a general idea. But basically, they feel like what they have to say doesn't matter. People kind of stop listening to them. And part of it is because when you deal with such intense emotion, people do stop listening, because when things are calm, it's like they want to break, you know? And so they have to pay attention so much to the intensity that when the person isn't intense, people don't listen. So the people with BPD say, well, what I say doesn't matter, but if I can get emotionally aroused and upset, then people listen. They have a belief that they're worthless and that no one cares what they have to say and that no one gets how intense their suffering is. Now, these are important because we're going to talk about your response to these and what you can do. First of all, don't try to talk people out of their feelings. You shouldn't feel that way. You know people care about you. After everything I've done for you, How can you think that I don't care? That doesn't make any sense. It's not that big a deal. Just calm down. And we say these things, and I've said them myself, with the best of intentions, trying to help them see perspective. But what we actually are doing is, that whirlpool and that cascade, we're adding to it, because then you don't understand. You wouldn't say that if you understood. It's important to me. And the other thing is how hard change is. Oh gosh, is change hard. How many people here hang their toilet paper so it goes back? Nobody? There's some people. Okay, now how many people hang it the right way so it comes... How many people here have closets that are color coordinated, like whites and blues? Oh my goodness. And how many people, it's just a jumble? Yeah. Okay, now if I told you today, go home, all you people that have messed up closets, organize them according to color and outfit. All you people who have messy closets, all you people who have organized closets, mess them up. You don't need them that organized. Mess them up. Let's get some flexibility going here. All you people that have your toilet paper hanging under, go home and change it. Every bathroom. Hang it so it goes over the right way. And all you people that have it hanging over, let's just get you to hang it under. Let's be flexible. Hang it under. How many people will do it? If I can't even get you to change the way you hang your toilet paper or the way you have your closet organized, how can I get you to change the way that you express your emotions and what you do to regulate your emotions? If you're a coffee drinker in the morning, can I take away your coffee? You need it to function. So I'm making light, because this is such a heavy topic. I don't want to bring us so down, but I'm trying to make a point that change is so hard. And part of what you can do is recognize that, because your loved one goes to therapy, it's not going to be a quick change. And they're going to be discouraged. And part of what you do is hold hope. Like part of what a therapist does is constantly hold hope. Because somebody's got to. Because remember that despair? So I need for you to be willing to hold hope and remember that change is hard. So this is you. Now we're going to talk about you. So what can you do? There's this whirlpool of emotions. There's this elephant brain of emotion. What can you do? The first thing is we got to get you regulated. How many people here have ever said something they didn't mean in anger? All right. People with BPD seem to have a talent for bringing up anger. And just as they can be the most loving people, they can also be some of the most frustrating people at times. So to just respond may not be the best choice, because we need for you to be regulated when you're interacting with someone with BPD. So we're going to talk about that as the first step, and the second step is validation. And you can't validate if you're not regulated. And you guys know what I mean by regulated. Like you're relaxed, you're calm. Think about the last time you were scared. Something really scared you. Got it? Okay. When you get scared, your nervous system changes. And you can no longer, your facial muscles, they sort of freeze. You get tight. Your body is kind of stiff. You're a little bit frozen. Your voice is no longer musical, it gets monotonic because you're scared. and you have kind of a flat face. Okay, this is scared as best as I can do it right now. Okay, what we're going to do? Let's think about this. What am I signaling to you? What did I look like? What emotion? Did I look scared? If we mirror each other, so if I'm scared, I'm going to trigger scared in you. And the emotion starts going up. Some people see this as anger. And if I'm angry, there's this mirroring that goes on that you see my emotion and it starts to create that in you. So then we have two people that are dysregulated. That's not a good idea. It works the other way, thank goodness. If you can stay relaxed and calm, that signals to the other person there's nothing to be afraid of, and it can help them be more relaxed and calm and more regulated. So let's just look briefly at how you can regulate. You know a lot of these. So one of them is, let's stop and take a pause. When we're emotionally upset, it seems like it's got to be fixed right away. It's urgent. I need to act on this. I've got to do something. Be very suspicious of urgency. It's usually not our friend. Most things can wait. And if they wait, if I would just wait before I would push send on that email, I would have saved myself a lot of grief. But you know that sensation that you just, I'm going to send it, I'm going to send it now. I don't care. I've actually thought that before. I don't care. But I did care later. So wait, pause, step back, take a breath, slow things down. Pay attention to your body posture. Okay, so tighten up. Everybody, like, cross your arms, tighten your muscles, frown. What do you experience inside? What happens? Tense up. And when you tense up, it sends a message to the brain. There's something to be tense about. So I want you to be surfer dudes. Big expressions send message to the brain. We're safe. We're okay. Musical tone of voice. We're safe. We're okay. Shrugging the shoulders. Expressive. All that says, it's okay. And the more you do that, the more message gets to your brain so you can relax. Plus, the added benefit is it sends a signal to the other person. Benign interpretations. Oh, is this one hard? If any of you are in Family Connections, which is the course for families that's free, NEA, BPD, there's someone trained here in Family Connections. But they offer this free course for family members. And they talk about benign interpretations. So the young man comes down and says, Mom, a deer jumped on the car last night. And the mom says, yeah, right. Were you drunk again? That is not a benign interpretation. And it's hard to do when someone who has a history of not making the best choices, it's hard to have a benign interpretation. But it will improve your relationships 1,000-fold. Because if I didn't drive drunk, or I didn't do what you're assuming I did, now I'm all angry. And the relationship is harmed. So if you assume what happened with the car, and assume at least benign, but instead of destructive or wrong or whatever, it can help lower the tension in your family. Observe and describe your emotion. When you put a label on your emotion, it helps you regulate. It's amazing. I'm angry. There's my anger. Just labeling it helps you regulate. Breathe. When we start to get upset, we get tense, we don't breathe. So take deep breaths. Periodically breathe. Make sure you're breathing. I have some clients I have to tell them to breathe throughout the session because they're doing these real short breaths that increase tension. Half smile. Okay. So half smile is a neurological thing, and it's because the brain is connected to the facial muscles and expressions, and it sends signals to the brain. So what we do is I want you to have a I hate this cocktail party face. This is ridiculous. I want to go home. Take your hand and come down and start relaxing your eyebrows. Relax your cheek. And then a Mona Lisa smile, just slightly turned up. Can you feel it? Research shows that works. Ice works. Hold ice in your mouth. Altoids, anything really strong, all of that can help you start to be more aware and regulate your emotions. So avoid the situation if you can until you're calmer. Authentic expression. So authentic expression is like magic most of the time. And authentic expression is really just saying what's going on. So someone with borderline personality disorder says, you didn't call me back. I know you hate me. I know you're fed up with me. I don't even know why I bother. And you say, that's not true. And then you're in an argument because you just invalidated what they think. So maybe authentic expression could work better. You know, sweetheart, when you say that, it hurts my heart, and I feel misunderstood myself. Whatever's true, like speaking truth. So validation. Validation means we got you regulated, right? Everybody's regulated. Okay. So validation is just saying, I get it. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're telling me. It's just, you don't have to agree. It's understanding. I get what, and you got to really try to understand too. Not the therapist parroting, I hear what you're telling me. I think you're telling me da 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 in a parroting voice. I don't think I have it. I hear you saying that. Ugh. Okay? Not that, but a genuine validation. And don't say you understand when you don't. Don't try to solve the problem before you really know what it is. And don't tell them to calm down. So I was going to talk a little bit about why validation is important because I wanted to prove my case to you. But I think we're going to skip so I can have time for questions to some examples. So validation is, again, just saying, I get it. So imagine that you're sitting in the living room with your mother. Your sister walks in and your mother seems angry. An example of validation is saying, I noticed lately that every time my sister walks in the room, you stop talking and your face changes and you look tense. I'm guessing you're upset with her or you look angry. Are you? So it's just saying what you can observe and see. It doesn't say, I see no reason for you to be mad at my sister, or you're so mean to her, or anything like that. It's like, is this the way you're feeling? So perhaps your friend is crying because she learned someone important to her is moving to another city. Of course you're sad. I'd be sad if my friend were moving too. Now there's a really important part of this one, and that is because it's normalizing. Individuals with BPD don't really get when the emotions they're experiencing are normal and when they're not. So, of course, I'd feel that way too. Can be the most validating, one of the most validating things you can say. An invalidating response would be, you'll get over it. She won't be that far away. You can Skype. Because it's about emotion. That, if I can get, the key is it's about emotion. It's not about a solution. You're helping her label her emotion. You're helping her recognize that it's normal. And you're saying, hey, yeah, sad. I get it. Now, you might get to the solution later, but you got to validate first, because the person with BPD can't hear you until that emotion is calmer. And I tell you, validation is like verbal Valium. It's just that it has been shown neurologically to help people bring their emotions down. Now, it will not always work. I mean, you'll go home, you'll try it, it won't work, and you'll say she lied. But it won't. Nothing works all the time. Okay, so you complain to your husband he's forgotten to take out the garbage the last 3 weeks. He responds, oh, now you're mad at me. You're always mad at me. You never say anything good about me. You constantly run me down. How do you validate his feelings? Anybody got a guess? And remember, you don't have to agree. You don't have to say he's right. You're just recognizing how he feels. What about this one? This is just one possibility. Well, the first one's not. If you would do something right once in a while, then I would, is not the right answer. And it's not saying, I'm not mad at you, when you really are. Maybe it's, I know you've been so busy, it's difficult to remember, and I guess my tone did sound critical. I'm frustrated, and I'm sure the way I expressed it did not feel good. It's authentic. And so that's the other part of this message that I want to get across, is that validation needs to be authentic, not just parroting or trying to soothe we may not intend it, but to be patronizing. That's not it. People with BPD they will pick up on that in a moment. So I'm looking at the clock. I always want to talk longer than people want me to. So I think I should stop and perhaps ask for a couple of questions, maybe? Is that what I should do? That's what I should do.